Hi, I'm Kelly King from CRK Training, and in today's blog video, I'm going to talk to you about bits. So I know there can be a lot of confusion around this particular piece of equestrian equipment, and what I want to do is just try to clear up some of that confusion for you. So if you walk into a tack store, you've probably noticed that there are just a ton of different bits available. There's just walls of them, and each one will normally claim to be, kind of the new gadget, the new cure-all for all your bitting problems, and that's usually not the case. So let's just start with talking a little bit about the different types of bits. So bits can fall into two main categories. There's direct pressure bits, which is basically the snaffle bit, and then there's also leverage bits, which are more your curbs, your Pelhams, bits that have that shank that come down off of the mouthpiece. So let's start with just a plain snaffle bit. Now this is called an egg butt snaffle because of the sides. So you can tell that it's got kind of a ring here, but it's not totally round. And this is a pretty thick egg butt as well. So the snaffle bit works off of kind of a nutcracker action. So actually when you're trying any new bit, a really good test to kind of understand how it's going to function in your horse's mouth is just to put it on your hand and basically pull back on the rings here like you are pulling on the reins, and just try to get a feel for how this is actually going to function. So a snaffle bit like this that just has a simple one joint in the center, as you pull back, it's going to put pressure on the bars of the horse's mouth, and it's going to essentially kind of squeeze the tongue, and this piece is going to press up against the roof of the horse's mouth. So to help illustrate this, I actually have a horse jawbone here, and I'm going to show you with this. This is another snaffle bit. I'll kind of go over later the exact term for this one, but it's got the same action. So when this is in your horse's mouth here, and you can see how it just kind of, obviously you have the tongue and the gums and everything on a live horse, but I think you can get the idea. It lays, kind of right in the mouth here. Obviously you don't want your bit hitting your horse's teeth, and when you pull on this, you can see how it kind of goes like this. It has that nutcracker action, so it's kind of squeezing against the gums, squeezing against the bars of the horse's mouth, and you can see how this kind of comes up as you squeeze, which can be putting pressure, like I said, on the roof of the mouth. Okay, so that's the action of that one. Now let me just talk a little bit about these different types of snaffles. So there's a lot of different types of bits that fall into that snaffle category. This next one that I'm going to show you is called a loose ring snaffle. Mouthpiece is very similar to that first one that we looked at, but on this one, obviously the rings are loose. And it also has these rubber pieces here, which those are just to prevent the bit from sliding through the horse's mouth. So you'll see the loose ring is commonly used on Western horses or young horses. So some of these different sides of the bit, some of them provide like an extra function, and some of them are a little bit more of a style for different disciplines. So this is the loose ring. Now these are both full cheek snaffles, so they've got this longer side here, and the function of this is for a horse that maybe is a little bit more difficult to steer or something. The idea is that as you pull on one side, it pulls this against the horse's nose on the opposite side, and it helps him steer a little bit better. So full cheek snaffle. Now we're going to kind of get into how the mouthpieces can vary a little bit. So this one is called a twisted snaffle, and as you can see, it just means that the mouthpiece has a little bit of a twist, which is going to make it a little bit harsher because it kind of has these ridges that are going to put extra or more direct pressure on the bars and the tongue and everything else that we talked about. Now this one's very similar, but it's just got a tighter twist to it, so it's called a corkscrew. And same thing, this one's just going to be even a little bit more harsh or more severe because, again, it's got even more ridges that are going to cause more direct pressure points. Okay, I think the last snaffle that I have to show you here is this one is a D-ring. So this one is very common in hunters. Again, it's kind of a style. It's got a little bit longer here, so it can help a little bit with putting pressure on the side of the nose to kind of help with steering. But you know, the classic D-ring is just really a really popular style for for the hunter discipline. Now this bit is wrapped in a latex wrapping, and again, it's still a snaffle bit. Even if this bit didn't have a joint and it was straight across, that's called a mullen mouth, but it's still a snaffle bit because it still works off of direct pressure. And a lot of times you'll see rubber, or you'll see, basically this is kind of like a homemade rubber bit with this wrapping on it, and you'll see them used a lot on like young horses. And the idea is just that it's an even gentler mouthpiece to help with training and such. Now, actually I lied, I do have one more snaffle bit to show you here. And this is a version of the French link snaffle. So you'll see that this one has 2 joints instead of 1 joint. And the action of this bit is going to be slightly different. So let me put it in my hand again here to kind of show you. So as you pull on this one, notice it has less of a nutcracker action. So on this one, you're going to have more pressure directly down on the tongue. You're not going to have quite as much pressure on the bars of the mouth. So it's not necessarily a milder bit, it just kind of has a different action in how it works and how it functions in the horse's mouth. I personally like this bit. I found a lot of horses that go pretty well in these French link type of bits. And this is one of the things that sometimes you just have to try a few and see what your horse likes. And that kind of goes with the thickness of the bit too. As you notice with some of those snaffles that I was holding up, some of them had really thick mouthpieces and some of them had thinner mouthpieces. And again, that's just going to kind of vary depending on your horse and kind of how their mouth is shaped, how much room they have in there, as to what bit they're going to be a little bit more comfortable with. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to talk about leverage bits next. So I'll start with this one. This is a pretty good example of a typical Western style curb bit. Now it's called a curb because it has this piece in the center here, and it would also be considered a shank bit because it has these longer pieces here. So this bit is going to work more off leverage because as the horse is holding in his mouth, as you pull, notice how it kind of does that. So the action of this bit, if you picture your bridle hooked up here, as you pull, it's pulling on your bridle. So it's actually pulling down a little bit on the top of the horse's head, because remember you got your bridle strap that goes up behind his ears. And this piece is going to again be pushing on the roof of the horse's mouth, because as this pulls, see how that kind of twists and goes like that. So that's going to be putting some pressure up on the roof of the horse's mouth. Now, a lot of times these style bits are also ridden with a curb strap or a curb chain, which is a piece that goes right here, so that as you pull and you're engaging the pull on top of the horse's head, you're also engaging some pull right under his chin. So actually what I'm going to do is kind of show you another version of that. Now this is an English style bit. This is called a Pelham. And this one's all rigged up on the bridle. So you can see how we've got our curb chain here that would get hooked over here. And you've got essentially the same action as far as pulling down on the top of the horse's head and pulling up under his chin, but this one has a jointed mouthpiece. So you're going to get a combination of that leverage action on the horse's face plus that nutcracker action in his mouth. And also with these Pelhams, they can be ridden with one rein with this converter strap like I have it here, or you'll also see these being ridden with 2 reins so that the rider can engage either the leverage action of the bit or they can engage just the snaffle action of the bit depending on which rein they're using. And that's usually used for more common or more higher level training, I should say. Like you'll see dressage horses that wear double bridles, and the function of them is kind of the same. You have your leverage bit and your direct pressure bit, and the rider can kind of be engaging each as he needs them depending on what he's trying to get in the horse's body. All right, so let me see what other bits I have to talk about. So this one is called a Tom Thumb. This is basically the Western style of the Pelham. Action is going to be very similar, except for this one is set up just to be ridden with one bit, or with one rein. So it's only going to be used as a leverage bit. It doesn't really have that direct pressure that goes along with it. All right, and I think the last bit that I have to show you here is a Kimber Whack. So this is another pretty common English style bit. These Kimber Whacks, again, they'll come in either a jointed mouthpiece or a solid mouthpiece. You can tell this one has a little curb, which is again this raised piece in the middle. Your cheek piece of your bridle is going to hook right in here. Your curb chain is going to hook right in here. So this bit, this bit again would have a curb chain that goes with it. And with this type of bit, you've got 3 options for where you can put your reins. So you can hook them right on here, where you're going to have a little bit of leverage, but not a lot. You can put them up here, which you'll have very little leverage. It'll mostly act as a direct pressure. Or you can put them down here, where for this bit, you're going to have the most leverage. So as you're pulling, you're going to have a little bit again of that kind of twisting action of the bit that puts pressure on the pole, etc. All right, so really what I've shown you here just kind of scratches the surface in the bits that are available. So I think I covered, the main functions of the bits, and there's tons of different companies that make all kinds of different bits. And if you're evaluating a new bit, just, hold it in your hand, try to really think about how is this going to function in my horse's mouth, and you can kind of use that as a gauge for, is it going to do what you want it to do? And me personally, there's very few horses that I ride outside of a simple jointed snaffle or a French link type of bit like this one right here. So I kind of go for simple is better for me. I kind of try to stay away from the gadgety stuff, and I feel that most training problems are caused by something a little bit more deeper, by a deeper issue that I try to fix instead of just changing the bit. So that's my philosophy, but I hope that you enjoyed this little demo or lecture on bit types, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and also tell us what kind of bit do you use on your horse, and do you like it, or do you think you might try a different one? So if you enjoyed this video, please share it, and also be sure to subscribe at crktrainingblog.com so that we can keep you updated with all the new videos that we put out there.